Africa, a continent of breathtaking beauty, diverse cultures, and unbreakable resilience, has also endured some of humanity's darkest chapters. From relentless wars and heartless genocides to unforgiving famines, deadly pandemics, and nature's fury, these events have claimed millions of lives. This isn't just about loss, it's about understanding history to honor the survivors and prevent future horrors. Let's begin.
The Lake Nyos disaster. We begin with a rare and terrifying natural phenomenon. In 1986, Lake Nyos, a crater lake in northwest Cameroon, suddenly triggered a catastrophic release of a massive carbon dioxide cloud. This invisible, odorless gas cloud settled into the surrounding valleys, suffocating livestock and people almost instantly. Over 1,700 people and thousands of animals died. This singular event led to the eventual implementation of degassing systems at the lake to prevent recurrence.
Cyclone Idai. Fast forward to 2019, when Cyclone Idai struck southeastern Africa. It was one of the worst tropical cyclones on record in the southern hemisphere, bringing catastrophic winds and rainfall that caused apocalyptic flooding. The aftermath saw massive humanitarian challenges, including cholera outbreaks and severe food insecurity. The total estimated death toll across Mozambique, Zimbabwe, and Malawi exceeded 1,300, and millions of people were displaced. The Ebola outbreak. This epidemic, centered primarily in Guinea, Liberia, and Sierra Leone, was the largest Ebola outbreak in history. It exposed critical vulnerabilities in local healthcare systems and caused widespread fear and societal disruption. While the international response was substantial, the virus was devastating. According to the World Health Organization, there were over 28,000 reported cases, resulting in approximately 11,300 deaths. Gukurahundi. We move now into internal conflict. The term Gukurahundi refers to a series of massacres carried out by Zimbabwe's 5th Brigade, a specialized military unit, primarily against the Ndebele people in Matabeleland, shortly after the country's independence. Officially described as an operation to quell dissidents supporting an opposition party, the campaign involved severe human rights abuses. The violence targeted civilians suspected of supporting the opposition. Estimates vary significantly. While government figures at the time were much lower, human rights organizations and subsequent investigations estimate the death toll ranges from 10,000 to as many as 20,000 people. The Sierra Leone Civil War. Sierra Leone was consumed by a decade-long civil war, often fueled by the trade in blood diamonds. The conflict was notorious for its extreme brutality against civilians, the widespread abduction of child soldiers, and systemic mutilations used as terror tactics. Multiple peace agreements failed, and the country was only stabilized after a major UN intervention. Precise numbers are difficult to verify, but it is estimated that between 50,000 and 70,000 people were killed, and over 2 million people were displaced, nearly half the population. The Lord's Resistance Army Insurgency. Led by the notorious Joseph Kony, the Lord's Resistance Army, LRA, began as an uprising in northern Uganda. The conflict is infamous for the abduction of thousands of children, forcing them to become soldiers or sex slaves. The violence forced over 90% of the population in northern Uganda into displaced persons camps, where conditions were often dire. While the LRA is now severely weakened and operating in neighboring countries, its peak caused immense suffering. Over decades, the conflict caused an estimated tens of thousands of deaths, with some estimates reaching over 100,000 when accounting for war-induced disease and famine, alongside more than 60,000 abductions. Somalia famine. Drought, conflict, and restricted aid access combined in 2010 to create Somalia's worst famine in decades. Al-Shabaab militants blocked humanitarian efforts, leading to around 260,000 deaths, half children under 5, from starvation and disease. The UN declared famine in parts of the country, prompting a massive global response. While aid eventually helped, it highlighted how war amplifies natural crises. Somalia has since improved early warning systems, though ongoing instability remains a challenge. The Angolan Civil War. Following independence from Portugal in 1975, Angola immediately plunged into a devastating civil war. This conflict became a significant Cold War proxy battle, with the government supported by the Soviet Union and Cuba, and the main rebel group, UNITA, backed by the United States and South Africa. The war was intermittent but intensely violent, involving conventional warfare, guerrilla tactics, and extensive use of landmines, leaving a tragic legacy that persists today. While final numbers are hard to determine, it is estimated that between 500,000 and 1.5 million people died from the direct violence, war-induced famine, and disease. The Mozambican Civil War. Similar to Angola, Mozambique fell into civil war after achieving independence from Portugal. The Frelimo government, initially socialist, fought the Renamo rebel movement, which received extensive support from white minority governments in Rhodesia, now Zimbabwe, and South Africa. The conflict was marked by extreme cruelty, including the dynamic strategy of destroying economic infrastructure, school, and health systems. Famine was frequently exacerbated by the intentional destruction of agricultural supplies. The war was ended by a 1992 peace accord. It is estimated that up to 1 million people died from the combination of fighting, landmines, and above all, war-induced famines and diseases. The Liberian Civil Wars. Liberia endured 2 interwoven civil wars that left the nation in ruins. These conflicts involved numerous rival factions, the widespread use of child soldiers, and horrific atrocities, including summary executions and sexual violence. The first war concluded with Charles Taylor being elected president. The second war began shortly after, as new rebel groups emerged to oust him. Regional and UN interventions were ultimately necessary to restore stability. It is estimated that between 150,000 and 250,000 people were killed in the fighting, and the wars displaced hundreds of thousands of others, causing catastrophic humanitarian outcomes. The Nigerian Civil War. This conflict began when Nigeria's southeastern region declared independence as the Republic of Biafra, rooted in ethnic tensions and control over oil resources. While there was heavy military fighting, the war is tragically remembered for the blockade imposed by the federal government, which resulted in a monumental humanitarian crisis. Images of starving Biafran children brought the disaster to global attention, sparking some of the first major non-governmental international relief efforts. While perhaps 100,000 to 200,000 died in military conflict, the resulting famine and related diseases are estimated to have killed between 1 million and 2 million people, predominantly civilians and children in Biafra. Tigray War. Tensions between Tigray forces and the federal government erupted into war, with blockades causing famine. Around 600,000 died from violence and starvation. A 2022 ceasefire opened aid routes. Ongoing dialogues aim for lasting peace, highlighting federalism's challenges in diverse nations. Algerian War of Independence. France's colonial rule faced fierce resistance from the FLN, leading to a brutal 8-year war. Guerrilla tactics met with French torture and bombings, killing 300,000 to 500,000, mostly civilians. Algeria's 1962 independence marked a turning point for decolonization in Africa. Today, it's remembered as a symbol of anti-colonial struggle, with ongoing efforts to heal societal divisions. The Ethiopian Civil War and Famine. After the 1974 overthrow of Emperor Haile Selassie by the Marxist military junta known as the Derg, Ethiopia was consumed by political repression, the Red Terror, and internal wars. This context amplified the effects of a severe drought, leading to a massive famine that peaked in 1983 to 1985. The international response was vast, but the complex political and military situation frequently compromised aid delivery. While hundreds of thousands died directly from the ongoing armed conflicts, the total estimated death toll from the famine alone is staggering, with figures ranging from 400,000 to 1 million people. The Second Sudanese Civil War, one of the longest and deadliest conflicts of the 20th century. Fundamentally, it was a war between the central government in Khartoum, dominated by northern Arabs, and the Southern Sudan Liberation Movement, SPLM, representing the mostly Christian and animist African population in the south. The conflict was deepened by disputes over oil and the government's attempts to impose Sharia law. The war involved atrocious human rights abuses, mass displacement, and war-induced famine. It concluded with the 2005 peace agreement, leading to South Sudan's independence in 2011. An estimated 2 million people died during this conflict, primarily due to war-exacerbated famine and disease. An additional 4 million people were displaced from their homes. The Rwandan genocide. This is perhaps the most recognized and devastating ethnic conflict of the modern era. In just 100 days, beginning in April 1994, extremist members of the Hutu majority government and affiliated militias systematically murdered approximately 800,000 people. The primary targets were members of the Tutsi minority, but also included moderate Hutus and Twa. The killing was characterized by its speed, brutality, and the widespread use of machetes and clubs. The genocide ended when the Tutsi-led Rwandan Patriotic Front took control. The UN later formally acknowledged its failure to stop the genocide, which continues to shape the entire region. The accepted death toll is 800,000. The Second Congo War. Often called Africa's World War, this complex conflict was the deadliest war since World War II. It drew in armies from across the continent and numerous domestic militias, partly as an aftermath of the Rwandan genocide and the collapse of the Zairean state. While conventional battles occurred, the vast majority of deaths were not from direct violence, but from the systematic collapse of the state, economy, and healthcare. Displacement, the destruction of infrastructure, and extreme poverty led to massive outbreaks of preventable diseases like cholera and measles, alongside severe malnutrition. Determining accurate figures for such a complex war zone is immensely difficult. Various studies, primarily by the International Rescue Committee, have estimated the conflict caused between 3.8 million and 5.4 million deaths, mostly through preventable disease and starvation. The HIV/AIDS pandemic has impacted sub-Saharan Africa unlike any other single event. While a global crisis, this region has been disproportionately affected. By the millennium, AIDS was the leading cause of death in sub-Saharan Africa, devastating families, communities, and entire national economies. In the hardest-hit countries, life expectancy dropped drastically, and millions of children were left orphaned. The cumulative impact on productivity and education was catastrophic. This crisis differed from conflicts. It was a slow-motion catastrophe with a cumulative impact vastly exceeding any single war on this list. According to UNAIDS, since the beginning of the global epidemic, approximately 39 million people have died from AIDS-related illnesses. The vast majority of these deaths, estimated to be well over 20 million people, occurred in sub-Saharan Africa over the decades. The dramatic expansion of ART access in recent years has greatly reduced mortality rates, but the peak of the crisis remains one of the defining, tragic moments of the late 20th century. Reflecting on these historical events is difficult, and we appreciate you staying with us. Our goal has been to provide an educational overview of some of the continent's most challenging chapters. It is vital to remember that this video focuses exclusively on historical crises. This represents only one aspect of Africa's story. It is also a history of vibrant cultures, the fight for independence, economic development, and powerful resilience. Understanding the continent's past, including its most difficult moments, is essential to appreciate its present challenges and celebrate its progress.